You walked into like a major, really upscale hotel.
Oh yeah, those big luxury properties.
Right, exactly. The sliding glass doors part, the temperature drops to exactly, I don't know, 68 degrees.
Yep, always freezing in the lobby.
Yeah, and there's that really subtle, like proprietary scent of white tea and cedar in the air.
Oh, they engineer that scent specifically for that building.
Exactly. And then someone who has literally never met you looks you dead in the eye and says, "Welcome back."
It feels amazing though, doesn't it?
It does. And you probably thought you were just paying for a bed for the night, but you weren't.
Not at all.
You were actually stepping inside highly optimized and psychologically engineered ecosystems on the planet. And today, we are going to tear that ecosystem apart.
We really are, because it is a world designed specifically to hide its own massive complexity
from the person experiencing it.
Exactly. The ultimate goal of a perfectly functioning hotel operation is basically invisibility.
Invisibility. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, when the machinery works, you don't notice the logistics or the frantic communication or the algorithm that decided your room rate. You just feel taken care of.
Did you feel relaxed?
Right. But the amount of friction required behind the scenes to produce that frictionless guest experience is just staggering.
And to really understand that friction, we are diving into a really foundational, highly concentrated source today.
A dense one today.
It really is. It's a document titled The Modern Hotel Yönetimi Eğitim Dokümanı, which translates to a modern hotel management training document.
And this document is huge for the industry.
Yeah, so if you're a hospitality professional or maybe a revenue manager or honestly just someone obsessed with complex organizational behavior, this industry has been going through a massive tectonic shift lately.
Over the last decade especially, yeah.
Right. So our mission today for this deep dive is to use this document to decode that shift. We want to move past the old school, rigid hospitality models.
The whole just give them a clean bed approach.
Exactly. And break down what it actually takes to run a modern data-obsessed accommodation empire.
Because it is an empire.
It is. We're looking closely at the operational architecture, the psychological demands on the leadership, and of course, the unforgiving financial metrics that dictate every single decision.
And the core tension that really runs through this entire text is survival.
Just flat out survival.
Yeah. The document makes it incredibly clear that the traditional model where success was defined just by providing a clean room, a hot meal, and a polite smile, that is completely obsolete.
That used to be the gold standard.
It was the baseline. But now that baseline is basically a guaranteed path to bankruptcy.
Wow.
Yeah, the text is outlining this evolution into what it explicitly terms the modern approach.
Right, and it defines the very concept of hotel management around 4 massive pillars: planning, organizing, executing, and auditing of accommodation services.
Which I know sounds super dry at first.
It does. On the surface, that sounds like standard, MBA level corporate speak. But let's look at the actual mechanism of what those 4 words mean when you apply them to a building that never ever locks its front doors.
That's the key right there.
Yeah, I mean, we aren't talking about a software company that clocks out at 5 p.m. or a retail store that closes on Thanksgiving.
Exactly. The operational weight of those 4 pillars in a 24/7, 365-day environment is honestly difficult to overstate.
So let's really look at the mechanics of it. Start with planning.
Okay, so planning in this context isn't just an annual budget meeting. It is a continuous, totally predictive modeling exercise.
And forecasting.
Hyper-specific forecasting. It is a director of operations looking at a municipal events calendar, historical flight data, and local weather patterns.
Just to run a hotel.
Yes, because they have to forecast exactly how a citywide marathon 6 months from now will alter their linen attrition rate, or how it will impact breakfast buffet consumption and valet parking bottlenecks.
Because if you fail at that macro planning, the micro execution completely collapses.
Precisely. And that leads directly into the second pillar, which is organizing.
Right.
In a massive hotel, organizing means coordinating hundreds of staff members across fundamentally different operational disciplines.
They speak totally different languages.
They do. You have culinary teams operating under super strict health and safety protocols. You have engineering teams managing complex HVAC and plumbing grids.
And then guest services.
Right. The guest services teams who are handling really high stress, emotional interactions all day. The hotel management framework has to align all these entirely disparate tribes to move in unison.
Okay, so that's planning and organizing. What about executing?
Executing is the actual theater of service. It's the precise delivery of the product in real time, right in front of the guests.
Handing over the keys, cooking the steak.
Exactly. And then the final pillar auditing that has completely evolved.
Yeah, it used to mean just a guy with a clipboard checking room inventory at the end of the month.
Yeah, totally. But now auditing is relentless real-time quality control.
Like what kind of control?
It's scraping TripAdvisor reviews using AI, monitoring social media sentiment across platforms, and tracking the exact minute a room service tray is finally removed from a hallway.
Okay, let's unpack this, because here is where the text throws a massive curveball, and I really want to push back on this.
Sure, let's hear it.
The document draws a very hard line. It states that the modern approach to managing these 4 pillars is defined by 2 distinct characteristics.
Right.
It says the modern approach is hyper-focused on the customer experience, and it is heavily data-driven.
The pairing of those 2 concepts is really the defining philosophy of modern hospitality.
But, I mean, doesn't that inherently contradict itself?
How so?
Well, if you are a hospitality professional listening to this, you know that hospitality is basically an emotional transaction. It's about warmth. It's about feeling seen. So if the modern approach relies entirely on data-driven architectures, crunching numbers, staring at CRM dashboards, and treating guests as just nodes of information, doesn't that risk turning the entire experience into something really cold and robotic?
It feels purely transactional.
Yeah, transactional. How does an algorithm create a warm, authentic human experience?
That is the ultimate paradox of the industry right now. It is a brilliant question because it targets the exact friction point of this modern approach.
Because it sounds awful on paper.
It does. It is very easy to assume that relying on data means, reducing human beings to metrics. But the text pairs customer experience and data driven together for a very specific reason.
Which is what?
Because in a modern, massively scaled operation, data is literally the only reliable fuel for empathy.
Data is the fuel for empathy.
Yes, okay.
I need you to break down the actual mechanism of that, because empathy implies a real, organic, emotional connection, not a database query.
Let's look at the mechanics of the traditional approach versus this new modern approach.
Yeah.
In the traditional old school model, the mere execution of accommodation, a hotel reacts to your presence.
Right. You walk in and they deal with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You arrive at the desk. The agent is very polite. They ask for your ID. They hand you a standardized room key. They are providing a totally static product.
Right.
Any empathy you feel relies entirely on the charismatic ability of that specific front desk agent in that specific 30-second window.
It's a total roll of the dice. Like if the agent is having a bad day, your experience is bad.
Exactly. It is highly variable and entirely reactive. But in the modern data-driven ecosystem, the hotel does not react to you. It proactively anticipates you.
Give me an example of how that actually works.
Let's say you are a loyalist to a specific global brand.
Like I travel for work a lot.
Right. The CRM, the customer relationship management system, has basically compiled a golden record of your behaviors across dozens of stays.
Okay.
The algorithm knows that you consistently request a room away from the elevator. It knows that you always order extra foam pillows. And it knows that you tend to expense a specific vintage of Pinot Noir to your room on the second night of a stay.
So they have essentially built a behavioral dossier on me.
They absolutely have.
It's a little creepy, but go on.
It is. But here is how that data translates into empathy. The empathy happens in the planning and organizing phases before you ever even step foot on the property.
How so?
The property management system automatically blocks a room for you at the very end of a quiet hallway. Housekeeping's daily task list is automatically updated by the system to swap out the standard pillows for foam ones before you arrive.
Oh, wow.
And then when you walk up to the front desk, the agent isn't just polite. They look at their terminal and the data prompts them and they say, "Welcome back. We've secured that quiet room at the end of the hall you prefer, and your foam pillows are already on the bed."
See, when you put it like that, it really does feel like magic. As a guest, you feel this incredible sense of relief. You feel like this massive faceless corporation actually knows you.
Right.
But what you are saying is that this feeling of warmth, this profound psychological comfort, is actually just a highly engineered output generated by a cold distributed database.
Yes. The hotel is utilizing data to simulate the intimacy of like a tiny little family run-in, but they are doing it at an industrial global scale.
It is wild.
It is. And this requires a fundamental shift in how we view hotel management. The empathy isn't fake, right? The agent really does want you to have a good stay, but the delivery mechanism is deeply systemic.
It's programmed.
Exactly. The text insists on a data-driven approach because human memory and organic charm simply do not scale.
You can't remember everyone.
Right. You cannot ask a front desk agent to remember the pillow preferences of 4,000 unique guests a month. You must rely on the data architecture to feed the frontline staff the exact contextual information they need to perform an act of empathy.
That completely shifts the paradigm. The traditional hotel was just a physical structure where, services were rendered.
Just a building with beds.
Yeah. But the modern hotel is essentially an information processing machine that just happens to have beds in it. The physical accommodation is just the hardware. The data-driven customer experience is the software running it all.
That is a perfect way to conceptualize it.
But, having the best software in the world is completely useless if the hardware is fundamentally broken.
Oh, absolutely. If the physical operation cannot execute the commands generated by the data, the entire illusion collapses immediately.
Which perfectly transitions us into the reality of how these buildings are actually structured. Because to execute this insanely complex, proactive, data-fueled mission, you cannot just have an amorphous blob of well-intentioned employees running around.
But you'd have total chaos.
Right, you need a rigidly defined, highly interconnected operational architecture.
You need a structural anatomy capable of handling that massive load.
And the source document provides the blueprint for that exact anatomy. It outlines the classic organizational chart of the accommodation machine.
The standard org chart, yeah.
Right. At the apex, you have the general manager. And directly underneath the text identifies these distinct massive silos. Front office housekeeping, food and beverage sales, and marketing, HR, and finance.
It really is the universal skeletal structure of the entire global hospitality industry.
And when you look at the sheer divergence of these departments,
yeah.
I mean, plumbers in engineering chefs and F&B accountants in finance, charismatic extroverts in sales.
Very different personalities.
Very. I always find the best way to understand how they interact is to map them onto the human body.
I love this analogy.
Yeah, because a hotel really is a single massive biological organism. And if one organ fails, the whole body basically goes into septic shock.
It's a really robust model. Let's test the mechanics of that analogy against the text definition.
Let's do it.
Let's start with the sensory input.
Right, the front office. They are the face, the eyes, and the voice of the organism.
Definitely.
They are the primary interface with the outside world. They take in the initial data from the guest process, the immediate emotional state of the arrival, and they project the personality of the brand.
They set the baseline psychological tone for the entire stay. I mean, if the face is frowning, the guest naturally assumes the body is sick.
Exactly. Okay, what about housekeeping?
Housekeeping is the immune system, without question.
Yes.
They are operating mostly invisibly, circulating through all the corridors, constantly fighting off decay, entropy, and infection.
Cleaning the rooms, fixing the wear and tear.
Right. They're constantly resetting the organism back to a state of baseline health. And just like the human immune system, you almost never think about housekeeping when it's functioning perfectly.
You only notice it when it fails.
Exactly. And the absolute second the immune system fails, the body is completely incapacitated.
It's paralyzed.
Yeah. I mean, a hotel with a failing housekeeping department is dead in the water. It doesn't matter how charming your front office is if there are literally no clean rooms to put the guests in.
True. Okay, then you have food and beverage, F&B.
F&B is the digestive system and the metabolism.
That makes sense.
It's taking raw materials, applying heat and energy, and providing sustenance and comfort to the organism and to the guests. It dictates the overall energy level of the building.
Okay, then you have sales and marketing. I always think of them as the outward-facing charm. The mating call, if you will.
The mating call, I like that.
Yeah, they are the ones out in the market making promises, attracting the lifeblood, which is the guests, into the building.
Which leaves the two departments that usually operate entirely behind locked doors, HR and finance.
The vital internal organs. Finance is obviously the cardiovascular system.
The heart.
It is the heart pumping capital, cash flow, and operating budgets through every single vein of the building.
Yep.
If finance stops pumping money, the limbs literally cannot move. You can't buy food for F&B. You can't buy cleaning supplies for housekeeping.
The organism dies.
Right. And HR is the brain and the central nervous system. They are recruiting the cells, managing the electrical signals between departments, mitigating internal conflict, and ensuring the behavioral standards of the organism are maintained.
It is such a good analogy because it highlights the fundamental vulnerability of the structure The text lists these as distinct separate departments, but it places the general manager above all of them.
So what is the GM in this model?
In your biological model, the general manager isn't just an executive. They are the consciousness of the organism.
The consciousness, wow.
Yeah, they have to synthesize this constant stream of completely contradictory demands from these wildly different organs.
The cognitive load on a modern GM must just be terrifying.
It is arguably one of the most complex generalist leadership roles in modern business today.
I can imagine.
Just think about the whiplash of a typical Tuesday for a GM.
Walk me through it.
At 8 a.m., the GM is down in the F&B silo tasting a new menu and discussing the intricacies of supply chain logistics for imported seafood. At 9:30 a.m., they're sitting with the director of finance, staring at a spreadsheet, analyzing macroeconomic yield trends and tax depreciation schedules.
Very different brain spin.
Entirely different. Then at 11 a.m., they are with HR dealing with a highly sensitive employee relations issue that requires deep emotional intelligence and strict legal compliance.
Right.
And then by noon, they are out in the lobby acting as the ultimate charismatic host to a visiting VIP guest. They must be fluent in the distinct operational language of every single organ.
But because those languages are so radically different, the friction between these silos must be just constant.
Oh, it's nonstop.
And this is where I really want to dig into the mechanics of operational failure.
Yeah.
Let's say you have this beautiful structural anatomy. What happens when the organs start fighting each other?
It gets ugly fast.
Because the goals of sales and marketing are completely different from the goals of finance, right?
That is the exact mechanism of a systemic breakdown. And honestly, it perfectly illustrates why the text insists that a modern approach requires perfect data integration.
Give me a disaster scenario. Walk me through a total breakdown.
Okay, let's run a scenario. Let's say the sales and marketing team. The charismatic outward personality is under immense pressure to hit their quarterly revenue targets.
They need to win.
Right. So they go out and land a massive contract, a 500-person tech startup retreat for a long weekend.
Hey, job sales.
To win the bid against a competitor, though, the sales director promises the client the world.
Oh, no.
They promise early check-in for all 500 attendees, a fully staffed 24-hour premium bar, and highly personalized welcome amenities in every single room.
Okay, but sales did their job. They brought the lifeblood into the organization.
Yes, they did. But they do it in a complete vacuum. Because simultaneously, the director of finance, the heart, has been looking at rising energy costs and mandates a strict 15% reduction in hourly labor across all operational departments for that exact same month.
Just to protect the profit margin.
No,
this is going to be a bloodbath.
It is a physiological collapse.
Yeah.
HR acting on finance's mandate freezes all hiring. Now let's look at the day of arrival. 500 tech employees show up at 11 a.m. expecting their promised early check-in.
Because sales promised it.
Right.
Yeah.
The front office, the face, is completely understaffed because of the labor cuts from finance.
So the line is out the door.
The line stretches out the door. The guests are immediately furious. Meanwhile, housekeeping, the immune system, is operating with a skeleton crew. They are physically incapable of turning over 500 rooms by noon.
So the front office is just taking the screening complaints, but they can't do anything because the housekeeping is literally drowning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The front desk agents are calling housekeeping, begging for clean rooms, creating massive internal animosity.
Everyone hates each other.
Basically. The guests finally get to their rooms at 4 p.m., and the personalized amenities sales promise, well, they aren't there because F&B didn't have the labor to prep them.
What a disaster.
And that night, 500 thirsty tech workers descend on the lobby bar, which only has 2 bartenders on shift. The service is totally abysmal.
The entire organism has basically cannibalized itself. The customer experience is completely destroyed. And the irony is, sales thinks they had a great quarter, and finance thinks they successfully managed the labor budget.
Exactly. And this is the profound danger of the traditional departmental silo. The structure exists, but the alignment doesn't.
So how does the modern approach fix this?
This is why the modern approach in the text heavily emphasizes data-driven operations.
Right.
In a modern hotel, the CRM and the property management system act as an unsiloed nervous system. Sales cannot finalize that contract without the system instantly calculating the required labor load and checking it against the finance department's labor matrix.
So the system flags the conflict before it happens.
Exactly. The general manager's primary role today is not just walking the lobby and shaking hands. It is ensuring that data flows seamlessly across these departmental borders so that Sales never ever writes a check that operations cannot cash.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. The structural anatomy dictates what functions must be performed, and the data architecture dictates when and how they communicate.
You say.
But there is a massive ghost in the machine here.
What's that?
You can have a perfectly designed organizational chart, and you can have absolutely flawless data integration. But at the end of the day, human beings have to clean those toilets, cook that food, and smile at those angry guests.
Yep, a human element.
The human element fails, the entire data-driven machine just stops dead.
Which brings us to arguably the most complex variable in the entire document, human psychology.
Right. How do you actually manage the people operating within this rigid structure?
Exactly. The text dives deeply into this under the section on leadership. It transitions from the sterile structure of departments into the incredibly messy reality of management styles.
It's a huge shift in the text.
It outlines 3 very specific paradigms that dominate the industry: autocratic, democratic, and transformational leadership.
Right, the classic 3.
But it doesn't just list them neutrally. The document actually takes a definitive stance. It explicitly argues that the modern approach requires actively encouraging employee participation and innovation. The evolution of leadership theory within hospitality is fascinating, honestly.
Why is that?
Because hotels are inherently militaristic environments.
Militaristic?
Yeah, there are strict hierarchies, intense time pressures, and absolute non-negotiable standards of execution. Because of this, the default historical setting for hotel management has always been the autocratic style.
The ultimate top-down command and control dynamic. The GM barks an order and everyone just falls in line.
Precisely. In an autocratic system, the manager holds a total monopoly on decision-making. Information only flows in one direction, and that's downward.
Right.
The staff are viewed essentially as programmable units of labor whose only function is absolute compliance with standard operating procedures.
Now, I know it's incredibly fashionable in modern business literature to completely villainize autocratic leadership.
Oh.
It's usually viewed as super toxic.
Oh, absolutely.
But let's be intellectually honest for a second. In a massive, complex operational environment like a hotel, isn't there a very necessary place for a dictator?
Actually, there is. And the text doesn't dismiss it entirely because in acute operational reality, autocracy is frequently a mechanism for survival.
Like in an emergency.
Exactly. If the fire alarm goes off on the 15th floor, you do not want a manager gathering the staff to brainstorm evacuation strategies.
You want someone yelling, "Get out."
Right. You need an autocrat to dictate immediate action. Furthermore, consider the culinary environment or food safety protocols.
Oh yeah, cooking raw meat.
Right there is zero room for creative interpretation of the internal temperature of cooked poultry. Brand standards regarding hygiene or financial compliance require strict autocratic enforcement.
Right. If you're running a massive luxury brand, you cannot have a housekeeper deciding to, quote unquote, innovate the way the towels are folded just because they felt creative that day.
The brand relies on standardization.
It has to look exactly the same every time.
Exactly. But the fatal flaw of the autocratic style, when used as the default day-to-day management tool, is that it completely strips the frontline worker of their autonomy.
Right, they become robots.
If you treat an employee like an unthinking machine, they will behave exactly like one. They will do the bare minimum required to avoid punishment and absolutely nothing more. Morale plummets and turnover skyrockets.
Which is incredibly dangerous when those exact employees are the ones responsible for delivering the customer experience we talked about earlier.
You can't force someone to be empathetic.
No, you really can't.
So historically, the industry tried to correct this by swinging the pendulum all the way toward the democratic style.
The complete opposite.
Right. This is the consensus building model.
Yeah.
The manager actively solicits input, holds regular town hall meetings, and tries to make decisions that reflect the majority will of the department.
That sounds like a much healthier psychological environment.
It is definitely better for morale,
Yeah.
but it introduces a totally new mechanical failure: paralysis.
Paralysis.
Yeah, hotels operate in real time. If market conditions shift, let's say a sudden massive snowstorm strands thousands of travelers at the local airport, and you need to adjust your pricing and staffing matrix immediately.
You can't call a town hall for that.
You cannot wait for a committee vote. Democratic leadership often prioritizes harmony over operational velocity.
Which leaves us with the third paradigm, the one the text crowns as the absolute pinnacle of the modern approach: transformational leadership.
The golden standard, according to the text.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The phrase transformational leadership sounds great on a LinkedIn post, But I want to strip away the corporate buzzwords.
Let's do it.
The text links this style directly to employee participation and innovation. How does a transformational leader actually operate differently on the ground in the trenches of a hotel without sacrificing those rigid brand standards we just agreed are totally necessary?
It requires a profound shift in the psychological contract between the manager and the employee.
What does that mean?
A transformational leader operates on the premise that the manager's primary job is not to manage the tasks of the operation, but to manage the potential of the people executing those tasks.
Okay, give me the mechanism. What does that actually look like in real life? Let's use our housekeeping immune system as the test case.
Perfect. Let's compare the styles. An autocratic director of housekeeping stands in front of their team at the 7 a.m. shift briefing.
Okay.
They read off a list of room assignments. They reiterate that every room must be cleaned in exactly 28 minutes, using exactly 3 sprays of glass cleaner on the mirror, according to page 42 of the manual.
Right. The communication is entirely about compliance.
And if the housekeeper takes 30 minutes, they're punished.
Standard autocracy.
Correct. Now, a transformational director of housekeeping understands that while standard operating procedures are vital, the actual housekeeper spends infinitely more time in the guest rooms than the director ever will.
Because they are the ones doing the work.
Right. The housekeeper is the ground level expert. The transformational leader uses a concept we can call bounded empowerment.
Bounded empowerment. I like that. Freedom within a framework.
Exactly. At that same 7 a.m. briefing, the transformational leader says, we must maintain our 28-minute standard to ensure the front office has inventory. That is the boundary. However, you are the experts on the floor. I want to know what is slowing you down. Are the new vacuum cleaners too heavy? Is the linen cart poorly designed for the tight hallways?
They asked for feedback.
Yes. They say, if you can find a more efficient way to load your cart that shaves 2 minutes off your time without sacrificing quality, I don't just want you to do it. I want you to bring that innovation to me so we can train the whole team on it.
Oh, that is a massive difference. You are completely shifting the employee's internal narrative.
Exactly. They are no longer a mindless labor unit executing a checklist. They are an operational consultant. You are giving them actual ownership over their immediate environment. And that is how you unlock the participation and innovation the text demands. A transformational leader inspires the team to exceed their own baseline expectations. They link the mundane daily tasks to a larger shared vision of excellence.
But let me push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
Because it sounds idyllic, but we have to connect this back to the absolute core of the text.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this specific leadership style a structural necessity for the modern approach?
Right.
Why can't you just run a successful data-driven hotel with a really, really polite autocrat?
Because of the data and empathy paradox we discussed in the very beginning, remember, the ultimate mandate of the modern hotel is a deeply personalized, emotionally resonant customer experience.
Right.
The general manager sitting in the executive office staring at spreadsheets cannot deliver that experience. The director of finance cannot deliver it.
The people delivering the empathy are the lowest paid, hardest working people in the building. The front desk agents, the servers, the housekeepers.
Precisely. Empathy requires real emotional bandwidth. If an employee is managed by an autocrat, if they are terrified of making a mistake, if they are stressed, micromanaged, and feeling completely undervalued,
They are drained.
their internal emotional battery is completely drained, just trying to survive their shift. They physically and psychologically do not have the surplus emotional energy required to look a tired guest in the eye, genuinely welcome them, and proactively anticipate their needs.
They will just retreat into robotic compliance. They will hand over the key and look away.
Exactly. But if an employee feels valued, if they feel their voice actually matters, and if they trust their leader, which is the absolute hallmark of transformational leadership, their emotional battery remains charged.
They have energy left over for the guest.
Right. They have the psychological safety required to be genuinely hospitable. Therefore, transformational leadership isn't just some HR initiative to make people feel fuzzy.
It's an operational requirement.
It is the necessary engine to produce the emotional labor that the modern data-driven strategy demands. You cannot mandate authentic hospitality. You have to cultivate the environment where it naturally occurs.
That completely recontextualizes everything.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the data provides the intelligence, the structural anatomy provides the physical capability, but the transformational leadership provides the actual human soul required to bring the machine to life.
It is an incredibly delicate, beautiful ecosystem when it actually works.
It really is. But, here is the brutal reality of capitalism.
Yes, the money.
Right. At the end of the month, the massive institutional investment firms that own the physical real estate of these hotels, well, they do not care about the soul of the machine.
No, they really don't.
They do not care if the housekeepers feel emotionally validated or if the front desk is exhibiting proactive empathy. They want to know one thing. Did this incredibly complex, multi-million-dollar organism generate a financial return?
Yes. Eventually, all the philosophy and psychological theory must translate into hard, cold mathematics.
Which brings us to the final and perhaps most ruthless section of our deep dive, the ultimate scorecards.
The KPI.
Exactly. How does the industry actually measure success? The text outlines 3 fundamental key performance indicators, or KPIs, that basically dictate the life and death of a hotel management team.
And those are occupancy rate, ADR, and RevPAR.
Right. Now, we're talking to an audience that understands the basics of business, but the specific mechanics of how these 3 metrics interact in the hotel industry are fascinating.
They really are unique to this industry.
Let's strip them down.
Okay, let's start with the most intuitive metric, which is also probably the most dangerous one if you view it in isolation.
Occupancy rate.
Yes, occupancy rate.
It's simply the percentage of your available inventory that is currently filled, right?
Exactly. If you have 500 rooms and 400 are booked, you are at 80% occupancy. It is a pure, simple measure of volume.
And psychologically, hotel managers love high occupancy.
Oh, they are addicted to it. A full hotel feels successful. The lobby is buzzing. The restaurants are packed. The staff is busy. It provides this massive dopamine hit of activity.
But relying on occupancy as your primary measure of success is a massive trap.
So what does this all mean? Why is it a trap?
Because it completely ignores profitability. I mean, if I panic about low volume, I can easily achieve 100% occupancy tomorrow by just dropping my room rates to $10 a night.
Right. The building will be completely full, but you will be hemorrhaging money.
Exactly. And it's not just the lost revenue. It is the wear and tear calculus.
What do you mean by that?
A full hotel is incredibly expensive to operate. The cost per occupied room, what the industry calls CPOR, absolutely skyrockets.
But if you have more people using resources.
Right. You are burning massive amounts of electricity, water, and gas. You have to maximize your housekeeping labor. Your linens are degrading faster.
So more volume actually costs more money.
Yes. If you are operating at 100% occupancy, but your rates are deeply discounted, you might actually be operating at a severe net loss compared to being, say, 60% full at a much higher rate.
The sheer friction of the volume destroys the profit margin.
Okay, so volume without revenue is fatal, which leads us to the second metric the text highlights, ADR.
Average daily rate.
Right.
ADR is the counterweight to occupancy. It tells you the exact average price you were capturing for the rooms you actually sold on any given night.
So if you sold 100 rooms and generated $20,000 in room revenue, your ADR is $200.
Exactly. It measures your pure pricing power in the market.
So if occupancy is flawed because it ignores revenue, shouldn't a GM just focus entirely on pushing the ADR as high as humanly possible? Let's just be a luxury product and charge a massive premium.
And here we run into the inverse operational failure.
Okay, explain that.
Let's look at the mechanics of fixed versus variable costs. A hotel has massive fixed costs. The mortgage on the building, the property taxes, the salaries of the executive committee, the baseline utilities required just to keep the lights on.
Right, the building demands to be fed regardless of whether there are guests or not.
Exactly. So if a revenue manager gets greedy and aggressively pushes the ADR to an exorbitant level, say $1,000 a night for a standard room, they might feel great about their pricing power.
Because the ADR looks huge.
Right, but at that price point, demand completely collapses. They might only achieve a 10% occupancy rate. Their ADR looks incredible on paper, but they are leaving 90% of their inventory to spoil.
Because an empty room makes $0.
Exactly. Remember, a hotel room is a highly perishable commodity. If a room goes unsold tonight, that revenue is gone forever. Yeah. You cannot put it on a clearance rack tomorrow.
So high occupancy at a low rate kills you through operational costs, and high ADR with low occupancy kills you because you can't cover your massive fixed costs.
Exactly. The GM is trapped between volume and price.
Which is exactly why the industry relies on the ultimate synthesizing metric. The text introduces the true scorecard of hotel performance, RevPAR.
Revenue per available room.
This is basically the financial thermostat of the entire operation. Walk us through the mechanism of RevPAR. How does it balance the trap of occupancy and ADR?
The math of RevPAR is elegant because it removes all illusions. You take your total room revenue for the night and divide it by the total number of rooms in your building, regardless of whether they were sold or sat empty.
Alternatively, it is simply your occupancy rate multiplied by your ADR.
Right.
So it basically forces you to account for your failures. It penalizes you for every single room you let sit empty, and penalizes you for every room you sold too cheaply.
Exactly. Let's look at a really concrete operational scenario to show how RevPAR dictates behavior.
Okay, lay out.
Imagine two identical competing 200-room hotels right across the street from each other.
Hotel A and Hotel B.
Right. Hotel A panics about a slow Tuesday. They slash their rates to $100 a night.
To drive volume.
Yes. They successfully steal all the demand in the city and hit 100% occupancy. 200 rooms at $100 equals $20,000 in total revenue.
Right.
Because all 200 rooms are available, $20,000 divided by 200 gives them a RevPAR of $100.
Okay, so Hotel A is totally full. They're running their staff ragged, and they generated a RevPAR of $100. What about Hotel B?
Hotel B's revenue manager holds their nerve. They refuse to drop their price, maintaining a rate of $200 a night.
So they are twice as expensive.
Yes. Because they are more expensive, they lose a lot of volume to Hotel A.
Yeah.
They only achieve 50% occupancy. They only sell 100 rooms.
Okay.
But 100 rooms at $200 still generates $20,000 in total revenue. Their RevPAR is also exactly $100.
Wow. Okay, let's really dissect the profound implications of that math. Both hotels achieved the exact same RevPAR. Both generated $20,000. But the reality inside those buildings is entirely different.
Radically different. Hotel A is operating at maximum friction. Their housekeeping staff is completely overwhelmed cleaning 200 rooms. Their front desk is dealing with long, angry lines. Their physical asset is taking maximum wear and tear.
What about Hotel B?
Hotel B, however, generated the exact same revenue while only cleaning half the rooms. Their labor costs are significantly lower. Their staff is way less stressed, meaning they actually have more emotional bandwidth to deliver that transformational empathy we talked about.
Right.
By holding rate and sacrificing occupancy, Hotel B's actual profitability is vastly superior, even though their RevPAR is identical.
That is the hidden secret of the industry. RevPAR isn't just a revenue metric. It's actually a proxy for operational efficiency.
It really is.
The entire game of hotel management is manipulating pricing minute by minute using dynamic pricing algorithms that scrape competitor rates and local demand signals.
All to find that sweet spot.
Right. To find the exact mathematical equilibrium where RevPAR is maximized without breaking the physical or emotional limits of the structural anatomy.
And this brings us completely full circle. The text insists that the modern approach is data-driven. The dynamic optimization of RevPAR is the absolute purest expression of that.
I imagine it also creates the ultimate friction point with the customer experience.
No, a massive friction point.
Oh, so.
Because an algorithm designed purely to maximize RevPAR has absolutely zero empathy.
It's just math.
Right. Let's say a massive storm rolls into the city, flights are canceled, and thousands of desperate people need a room. The dynamic pricing algorithm senses the massive spike in demand and instantly hikes the ADR from $150 to $600 a night.
Just supply and demand.
Yes. The hotel will easily achieve 100% occupancy at an incredible rate. Their RevPAR for that night will break historical records.
The finance department will be absolutely thrilled.
They will be throwing a party. But the human being who has been stranded at the airport for 12 hours, who drags their exhausted family to the front desk and is forced to pay $600 for a basic standard room.
They feel extorted.
They feel completely gouged. The algorithm maximized short-term revenue, but it completely destroyed the long-term customer experience and any chance of brand loyalty.
The person who has to look that angry, exhausted guest in the eye and actually charge them $600, well, it isn't the revenue manager.
No.
It's the front desk agent.
Exactly. The algorithm literally inflicts psychological trauma on the frontline staff. And if that staff isn't supported by a transformational leader who can help them navigate that intense conflict, the entire internal culture collapses.
The general manager must just constantly play referee between the ruthless, data-driven mathematics of RevPAR optimization and the really fragile emotional reality of the guest experience.
It is a brutal but strangely beautiful balancing act.
That is a staggering realization, honestly. I mean, we have taken this incredibly dense training document and basically mapped out an entire universe.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We started by dismantling the illusion of traditional hospitality, revealing the modern hotel as this proactive, data-fueled empathy machine.
Right.
We dissected the anatomy of the building, tracing how the front office, housekeeping, sales, finance, and HR, they all must function as a perfectly unsiloed organism, lest they basically tear each other apart.
And we examine the absolute necessity of transformational leadership,
proving that empowering frontline staff isn't just a cultural preference. It is the fundamental mechanism required to generate the emotional labor that data alone simply cannot provide. And finally, we decoded the unforgiving mathematics of occupancy ADR and RevPAR, exposing the minute-by-minute battle between maximizing institutional profit and protecting the human soul of the operation.
It is a level of complexity that is almost hard to comprehend until you really break it down.
It permanently changes how you view the industry. You really can't unsee the machinery once you know it's there.
You really can't. Every interaction feels different.
And to you listening to this deep dive the next time you walk through those sliding glass doors into a hotel lobby, I really want you to pause for just a moment.
Just take it all in.
Yeah, don't just see a place to sleep. Look at the front desk agent looking at their terminal. They are accessing a global data architecture.
Notice the perfectly timed arrival of the housekeeping cart.
Right. That is the immune system reacting to a predictive algorithm. Try to sense the invisible, incredibly tense equilibrium between the aggressive financial demands of RevPAR and the desperate operational need to make you feel emotionally comforted.
You are literally standing inside a living, breathing, calculating organism.
An organism designed entirely to make you forget that it is calculating anything at all.
Exactly.
But it leaves us with one final lingering tension, something to seriously consider as the industry continues to evolve and rely more on this tech.
What's that?
Well, we have established that the modern hotel absolutely requires cold, algorithmic, ruthless data tracking to survive financially.
True.
But it simultaneously requires profound human empathy and psychological safety to survive experientially.
It is the ultimate tightrope walk.
So as artificial intelligence gets exponentially more advanced, and as data sets become even more predictive, who will be the masters of this universe?
That is the big question.
Right. 10 years from now, will the most successful general managers be the ones who operate like elite software engineers, flawlessly managing data flows and RevPAR algorithms?
Or will it go the other way?
Yeah, will the ultimate advantage belong to those who operate like clinical psychologists, managing the fragile human emotion that algorithms can simply never replicate?
The machine needs a soul, but the soul needs a framework.
Something to mull over the next time you order room service. Thanks for exploring the machinery with us.